Hi, this is Brian Venton here with another My Town Media opinion piece that I've called Throwing People Under Buses. On the 16th of August last week, the Courier Mail and the Townsville Bulletin published an article called Email Reveals Mayor's Attempt to Sue Own Council for $100,000. They went on to explain that they had obtained a copy of an email sent from Townsville's Mayor Thompson to Council's acting CEO Joe McCabe, revealing that the Mayor, in their words, did in fact demand $100,000 in compensation for a breach of his human rights. Now, I suspect that this document leak had the intention to be another gotcha moment to discredit the Mayor. However, a leak of this nature is far more serious than many people realise, and I suggest the Bulletin has potentially exposed the acting Townsville CEO to a major breach of the Queensland Public Records Act of 2023. Now, let me explain what I mean here. Let's unpack it a bit. The Public Records Act of 2023 sets out a framework for managing and accessing public records. The Act is binding on all persons, which means even journalists ourselves have to be careful how we handle public records. Section 9 defines a public record as any information recorded on, in, or by using any medium that evidences the activities, affairs, or business of the authority. It can be any information connected to a public record to identify or contextualise the record. It may include a copy of a public record in part or in whole. And this is where the Act gets very, very specific. Section S11 says that the chief executive of a public authority must ensure that the public authority complies with the Act's requirements. In other words, the council CEO is the responsible person for ensuring public records are handled properly. In respect to confidentiality, Section 86 says that any person who has access to a public record has prohibitions or restrictions on them under the Act. They must not disclose information contained in the public record or otherwise give access to the record other than to the extent authorised under the Act. Now, what all this means is that the ability to move information around a public entity is tightly controlled and is highly regulated within the public entity. Journalists who report on public affairs are left with very few avenues to source information and often rely on leaked information from a public entity in order to craft their articles. In this instance, the media entity clearly stated that the information that they were relying on was an email from the Mayor addressed to the CEO. It appears that document was a leaked document. And if that is the case, it is a clear breach of the Public Records Act as I've outlined above. The question therefore needs to be asked, who within the council administration leaked the email and what was their intent in doing so? Was it the CEO himself? Or did someone else in the administration leak the document? And was it leaked with a malicious intent to do harm to the Mayor? The point to be made here, though, is that it could only have come directly from the CEO, as it appears he was the only person who was initially privy to the content. As previously mentioned, under the Public Records Act, the CEO himself has sole jurisdiction over the security of public records and is therefore the responsible person, irrespective of who might have leaked the email. It's hard not to draw the conclusion here that releasing this document through whatever channel suggests that there may have been malicious intent to do harm to the Mayor and damage his reputation. Many people would not be aware, but the Crime and Corruption Act of 2001 gives the CCC the ability to investigate and impose penalties for conduct breaches of this kind. The Act in Section 14 defines conduct as any neglect, failure and inaction and conspiracy to engage in conduct or the attempt to engage in conduct. Under Section 15, conduct then becomes corrupt conduct as anything, now listen carefully, this is a fair amount I want to cover here, anything that adversely affects or could adversely affect directly or indirectly the performance of functions or the exercise of powers of a unit of public administration or a person holding an appointment, and results or could result directly or indirectly in the performance of functions or the exercise of powers mentioned in paragraph A above. In a way that is dishonest or is not impartial or involves a breach of the trust placed in a person holding an appointment, either knowingly or recklessly, or involves a misuse of information or material acquired in or in connection with the performance of functions or the exercise of powers of a person holding an appointment. If proved that corrupt conduct has occurred, then it could be deemed to be either a criminal offence or a disciplinary breach resulting in the termination of a person's services. Section 18 of the Act goes as far as to say that a conspiracy or attempt to engage in conduct is not excluded from being corrupt conduct, had the conspiracy or attempt been brought to fruition by the taking of another step. Then that further step could also constitute an offence and grounds for dismissal. Now, this is serious stuff, and I think it's also worth reminding ourselves that the Criminal Code of 1899 in section 92A indicates that a public officer whom in part acts with intent to dishonestly gain a benefit or to dishonestly cause a detriment to another person can be guilty of an offence with a penalty of up to 7 years imprisonment if found guilty. Now, it's quite possible that there is more than one person involved in this leak of the Mayor's email. And whilst the acting CEO must take ultimate primary responsibility for the leak, others may well have been involved in the breach. And whilst I think it's reasonable to question the motives of the Townsville Bulletin in publishing the content of the Mayor's email, they have perhaps inadvertently exposed a serious level of administrative malfeasance within the Townsville Council, and we should all be concerned about that. The question, though, is what will be done about it. It's difficult to know where this latest attempt to harm the Mayor will end up, but throwing someone under a bus, or trying to, in whatever form that takes, sometimes has unintended consequences. Now, I hope you found this opinion piece helpful. These are my own observations and honest opinions, and we'll see how this plays out in coming days. Remember, the things that appear are not always as they seem. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch up another time. Bye.